I just wasn't expecting this conversation. I thought I was entering into a subject about the paranormal and just thinking it was going to be light entertainment, understanding someone else's perspective. But beyond that, Sean has created something that is so deep, so clever that I was actually blown away. I think you'll find that I repeated that sentence many times. But how we operate in the office, and we've all attended, those training sessions where we try to mock up a live scenario of an office environment, but take us out of that situation into something where we don't have all the structure and hierarchy, etc., and see what actually happens. The psychology behind that is absolutely fascinating. And Sean has built a business around that. I think it's so smart, so clever, the way that he's thought about this and bringing something that he's had in his whole life and he understands in such a different way is so clever. And I think that more companies need to understand this. It's not about replicating what we do on a day-to-day basis. It's actually looking deeper in the psychology and how people interact on a much more human and personal level. So there's so much in this. I really, really enjoyed it. Sean is a great character. He has such a brilliant way of talking and understanding. It just really was a pleasure for me. So let's dive into the conversation and I hope you enjoy it. Okay, so welcome everybody to Vantage Point Conversations, where I get to ask interesting questions. Well, I don't know if the questions are that interesting, but basically scratch all my curiosity about subjects I may know something about, I know nothing about, or I just want to know something about it. Today, my guest is Sean Courtney. Sean, I'm sure I've said that correct, but please correct me if I'm wrong. And I don't introduce my guests purely because some people thought it was through laziness, and it's not. It's just I don't think I would do a very good job. So take as long or as little time as you like just to give any highs, lows, background information, context, anything you think would be useful for people to know about you. And then we just dive into the conversation from there.
Amazing. So you did pronounce it correct. It is Sean Courtney. Many people call me Sean because they're not sure how to pronounce that particular version of Sean, but it's the Sean Connery way, as I always say.
Nice.
So I'm from Dusk Till Sean, and essentially from literally the age of 8, I've had an obsession with the paranormal after sort of having my first experience at that young age, and this particular obsession led to me wanting to do a little bit more and introduce a little more people to my world and turn it into what is starting to grow nicely into a little business.
Amazing. So before we jump into the conversation, I wanted to pay a big compliment to you. So I think you're the first person I've never actually seen on video before. We tried to have a conversation. It was just via voice. But there was something amazing about the way that you spoke. You have this accent, which, it's just very calming, but very engaging at the same time. But beyond that, I was like, oh, I haven't really spoken to Sean. We didn't really dig into anything about your world, but I was obviously the paranormal and all of that. I was like, I know so little about it. And I think there's obviously misconceptions, there's stigma, there's a whole load of things around it. But you've taken this and built that into a business, which I think is absolutely amazing. And I think it's one of those areas where we don't really talk about it. I often say the term woo woo because in so many things, it just creates this nice little barrier that if we say it's woo woo, then that doesn't mean anything about me, that I see things that I shouldn't see, or it kind of gives that protective thing. And I want to open that up because I think a lot of people have these experiences or see things or have all of these things, especially as children. And we're either told to shut it off or it doesn't make sense. We can't really rationalize it. And we live in a world where we want to rationalize everything. And so that's a lot to say. But when I saw your LinkedIn profile and we talked about, just doing this. And we didn't really talk for that long. I think it was maybe less than 5 minutes. I was just like, what an amazing conversation to have, because I've had no experience in that. So I'm very curious about it. But I wanted to understand your world much more, because, from your experience, oftentimes people go the other way. They kind of, sort of hide those things that have happened to them. They won't explain it, or they feel some shame or something along those lines. But you've embraced it, and I'm interested in that world, how that's evolved. I'm interested in everything, but there is this, don't talk about these things, or and but there's so much knowledge out there, and we always think, oh, well, that doesn't exist, because we want to be rational. But there's so much evidence about all of these things. I think it's absolutely, we should talk about it. And I think the more that we do talk about it and explain, then more people will come out and feel that there's no shame attached to any of those things, and they can talk about it, and then more knowledge comes about. So does all of that make sense? Is there any place that you want to dig into? Anything that I've gone wrong? Where do you land with all of that?
No, not really. I don't think you've got anything wrong. I think a lot of people have had some sort of experience. I mean, the most common experience is you walk into the room and there's like a strange smell. It could be something like a cigarette smell, like a tobacco smell, or a foul smell. Or sometimes when we say flower in the paranormal world, we normally get a lavender smell. So you may have some viewers that go, oh, I've done that. Yeah, I've sat there for tobacco smell or a lavender smell. This is normally something trying to get your attention. But our logical brain, like you say, we try to come up with a reason about what that might be. It could be a new air freshener. It might be somebody that's come in and they smoke and that's just lingered a little while. But you do look for that. And again, once you can't find an explanation to it, to put it in a category such as woo-woo is something that I think makes people feel a little bit safer about the experience that they've had. All I did was embrace fear. It scared me to start off with. I was very much, I was young. I was 8 when I first had my first sort of shadow figure. Didn't know what it was. A little bit scared. Obviously, you speak to your parents, and they're like, it's just your imagination, playing wild. It's your teddy bear in the corner, or it's your, your toy or something that you're seeing, and it's just you're tired and your brain thinks it's moving. I got into things like the Ghostbusters, and being neurodiverse, because I'm also dyslexic, helped me to sort of use these things as placebos that were going to sort of protect me should I have a problem. And obviously the whole put your head under the cover situation where everybody's safe. You've seen it in the movies. But being sort of dyslexic doesn't mean that you're a really good laugh in a game of Scrabble. It also means that sometimes you really do. If you hook onto an interest, you continue to hook onto interest. So I was always that strange child that was reading about, vampires and ghosts and all that sort of thing, as my other friends was reading about adventures and pirates, etc. But yeah, it's one of those things that for me, I found that embracing my fear and using it as something that I can control helped me to delve deeper, ask more questions, look into it more. And with anything, if you research it more, if you look for it more, you'll get more interaction. You will get more sort of signs that this stuff is absolutely real. And you have to make a decision then. Is this too scary for you to continue, or is this something that you want to continue with? And just like in business, there's quite a famous saying that if you step out of your comfort zone, everything is where you are. Well, your comfort zone is just fear. You get that hair standing in the back of the head. You get those goosebumps. You get that worry that you don't know what's going to happen. So I just embraced it, went forward with it, and I have to say I have never looked back. I really enjoy the things that I've found, the interactions that I've had, and now I just want to share it with everybody and show them that it's not nothing to be scared of. It's something to be interested in.
Wow, there's so much I want to sort of dig into that. Would you mind just taking us back to the first interaction? You said you were 8. So just a sort of foundation, and we can just dig in from there. What is it that you actually saw, or whatever happened?
So I was laying in bed, 8 years old, and I could just see a shadow figure in the corner. And it was, for me, it was the shape of an older gentleman. and it would just stood there, and it move, and then sometimes I'd notice it sort of maybe shoot onto my bed, and I was just very scared at the time. You do what you normally do, you go run to your parents, you wake them up, and again, very supportive parents put me back to bed, tuck me in, don't worry, there's nothing to worry about, you need to get some sleep, you've got school in the morning. And I got to a point where I was noticing this more, but more worried about going and continuing to wake my parents up. Both worked very hard. So I found a way of coming to terms with that. And that would have been in sort of superhero toys, such as, for me, it was Superman, Spider-Man, that sort of thing, Ghostbuster toys, that sort of thing. I always put these things as things that protected people. So I thought if I had these round my bed at the time, I'll be okay. So the first thing I did was just say, look, I don't want to see you. I want you to go away. And it did. And for a few nights, I didn't see it. And then I realized at such a young age that, wait a minute, I sort of have control of this. Now, obviously, I actually thought it was the toys to start off with, so I always had Luke Skywalker or somebody in my backpack when I was going around, just to make sure I was okay. But as I got older and I researched more and I read books more, and I got to a point where I was watching things like, I think for the very first part was sort of Most Haunted with Yvette Fielding, I realized that the communication that you have with them, you can control. But it's about making sure that you are controlling your energy, your fear, and by controlling your energy and by making sure that you are in control of this, you basically take control of fear. You empty that sort of attic in your mind where everything is scrambling and telling you should run, this is not good for you, and you get to a solution quicker, and you can cause more of an interest in what's going on. So from a really young age, that sort of inspired me to continue to learn more.
Wow, there's so much wisdom in what you're saying that can actually be applicable to so much in our lives, not just from the paranormal. Just understanding our energy and what's showing up, and this idea of fear, because I always think about like spiders, and we have, if I say irrational, I don't know why we fear spiders, if it's the way that it's looked or we've seen them on TV or something like that. If you actually look at it, you go, this is a tiny spider, and I know you can get big spiders, don't get wrong, that's even scarier, but the size of it, and we think they're going to hurt us. And I don't know if it's the defense mechanism, that fight or flight thing in us, but almost the first thing, I know there are many people that, wouldn't hurt insects, flies or whatever, but for a majority of us, we think we're going to be in harm. And I don't know if that's the nervous system triggering immediately, this thing needs to go away. And most of the time it's going to be, I'm going to kill that spider. And it's that reaction. But actually, if you can go beyond that, the spider's really scared of you. You can find a way to move it in a way that it doesn't affect you. So I do this with my kids now. So I was always afraid of spiders, but I've got 2 young kids now. And then I didn't want them to see that I was killing the spiders, because I thought that's not a nice thing. And so I now just put them in a glass and trap like a bit of cardboard underneath, and then the glass always has to be like a see-through glass, so I can see what's actually that I've caught it, and then I'll take it outside. And I've been doing that. Like, the kids are nearly 8 and 7, and it's 6, and it's one of those things you go, oh, okay. And my relationship with spiders has changed a bit. I still get a bit like, oh, and there is this almost immediate reaction. Okay, that's got to go away. It's got to, so that I feel safe. So that's amazing that you learned that as a 8-year-old. Was there a curiosity behind it as well? Was there that understanding about your energy and how you show up, and that you can control how these things are? like what was the decision that you made just to go? Was it like, oh, I want this thing back so I can ask questions, that sort of thing?
I think, as children anyway, you've probably had a imaginary friend or something, or you notice something. There's times where you look at like babies on the phone, they're looking at nothing and pointing. You don't know what that is. Or dogs will just start barking in the corner. Cats tend to go around in a circle. But for me, it was just more of a little bit like, well, my mum's always had dogs, so a little bit like we had a little Yorkshire Terrier called Hovis. A little bit like how my dad trained the dog to sit, stay, come, scratch at the door when he wants a toilet. I just sort of related it to that. I related it to how my dad trained the pet. I can say, like, go away. Just as I was in the playground, if I didn't want to play football, I could say no and walk away from the game. If there was somebody I didn't want to interact with that day, I could say no and move on. I looked at it as the same sort of way. So it was a simple sort of transition when you think about it, because it was just like I was on the playground, or I was telling the dog to come and have a fuss, fetch a ball or something. I literally looked at this thing that was in my room and said, no, go away. And I put my head under my covers, and when I lifted my covers over, it was gone.
Wow. It's I mean, we chatted just a few moments before this live, and we were talking, like, you've got young grandkids, and we were sort of saying, how amazing, the kids are, and the energy and everything. And I, one of the things we sort of mentioned is that we overcomplicate stuff. We overthink as adults. I don't know why that is, but that whole realm of being a child and being playful and not overthinking, and not, I don't know if it's because as we get older we're just bombarded with information and what we do, but that whole idea about kids seeing so much more than we do, and it's quite fascinating. And again, I think we also try and push that out of our kids to feel safe, or for them to feel safe, but they are so much more wiser, because I think there's such a simplicity. They don't, we try to rationalize things, and whereas they don't need to do that, or kind of want to do that, and like their imagination is all there. They're playful. They don't question a lot. They ask why, but they don't sort of try to justify things. They're just curious minds. And I've talked a lot about intuition and things like that with children, and I one of the things I had this coach, and she was explaining about intuition, and I think it's really something that I think we all have, but we kind of, is forced out of us by ourselves, society, parents, teachers, etc. And through life, I think actually, if we listen to our intuition, to listen to signals, to listen to energy, to listen to our body, there's so much wisdom there. There's so much enjoyment, fascination, curiosity about the world that we don't understand. And I'm trying to get back to that intuition, but I think my logical brain tries to run the show too much, and it tries to predict what that intuition is. But intuition is more, I would say, a bodily feeling, or however that is. And I think and so one of the examples this coach was telling me is, when you go to the shop and you go and pick up some fresh fruit, like, you don't just look at the one that you think is going to be the tastiest. Lean into your intuition. And so I tried this a couple of times. I was like, oh, okay. Like, and I never really, I was always in a bit of a rush. I didn't give it the time. But when I go shopping with the kids, I put them in the shopping cart. Even though they're getting bigger, they still like to be in the shopping cart and be pushed around. But like, when they approach fruit, I just say, don't look at it, just tell me which one it is. And sometimes, obviously, the fruit's open, like a watermelon or something, you can see it. Sometimes you can't, if it's a small closed version. Honestly, 9 times out of 10, they pick like an amazing tasting fruit or whatever it is. And I want them to keep that intuition. I want them to keep that curiosity, and that almost that knowledge that something's there, that they can believe it, they can trust in themselves, and not for me to beat the beat it out of them, not physically beat them out of it, but just by signals or saying something, and I think that's really important. Sorry, I've gone off on a bit of a tangent, but to
You're all
bring that,
right now.
but to bring that back to your world, how did that? So when you realized this and you wanted to understand more, did you then you started seeing this shadow figure again, and how did that progress? I'm just curious, what were the next steps, and and that still feeling that fear, but kind of leaning into it. How did you manage all of that?
So I guess the next steps for me was just sort of to ask questions. As this is one of the reasons I absolutely love what you do, because it links massively to what I do. You reach out and you ask questions. So silly little things like, what do you want? Why are you here? You might have heard before where people say, give me one knock for yes or two knocks for no. And I got a little bit frustrated with that, if I'm honest with you, because sometimes I'd get no answer. Sometimes I'd get a knock, but then I realised I am living in what is quintessentially a sort of older house. It could have been something, but as a young lad, I literally jumped on the fact that that was somebody talking to me. As I got older, I got a little bit more sort of technical and bought some equipment and started to be able to record like electronic voice phenomena, etc., EVP as we call it, and that's really how it sort of grew for me. So the next steps for me was to go out and do some investigations. The next step was to just sort of we'd go to my friend's house and he said it was haunted. So we'd go and we'd ask questions. We'd put the cat balls out to see whether or not they would flash if we left them alone. That's basically just these little fellas here.
Okay.
You probably got some in your house if you've got a cat, and you hit that and it will glow, but it will stop glowing. And when it stops glowing, we'd put that in the middle of the room and we'd ask for whoever was in the room with us to interact with it, and a cat would have to tap that with some force in order to make it really glow again. So if it glows without that, then we would find that something was obviously in the room with us, and we tried to get more of an intelligent conversation from it. So we'd get it to do something in order to sort of make that go. So it's like, if you're happy for us to be here, then please use this and make it flash, interact with it, and we'd get an interaction such as that, and it glow again.
Would it actually move, or it would just glow again?
We've had them move across the floor. We've had them glow. It's been quite great to see these things going. We also use the EMF as well, which was one of my very first pieces of equipment, which is the electronic magnetic field meter. You've probably seen them on shows, just like this thing here. So this here picks up electronic waves within the atmosphere. Now, green's fine. Green's basically picking up the fact that we've got in the laptop. That's indicating that something wants to talk to me. Red is where you need to be really interacting with them and talking to them and asking them questions, because this is where you're going to start seeing some more intelligent conversation with them. Shows like Most Haunted would use these. People like Zach Bagans would use this sort of thing in order to sort of talk and indicate that something's there. Now, the reason why I'm in this particular room is because I do live in a haunted house, so I'm hoping to pick up a few things and leave these things running during that sort of time. So we have got some interest, as you can see, as it's going to the yellow, but we really want that to go to like the orange and the red for it to be a really strong sort of interaction.
Wow, it's really strange, because I was thinking as you were talking, my brain shifts into this. I think the whole paranormal side of things has been, there's this very fine line. It's been used almost as entertainment and to I don't know, sort of bring some awareness, but it also kind of comes with this, I don't know, you're crazy type thought and this realm, and like it. it's really strange because I think a lot of people have tried to explain a lot of things throughout our lives, and you can see it in the media, everything, but people didn't listen to them. And I don't know why they weren't listening to them, whether that made them feel safer, or they couldn't explain it, or they're just ahead of their time. And I was just wondering, how has that worked for you? Because we talk about aliens and we talk about all of these things, and I am completely open-minded to all of those things. Just because I haven't seen something or I don't feel something, how wrong would it be to say that that doesn't exist? Like, just because it hasn't happened to me, or maybe it has and I've just shut it out of my mind. But
Yeah.
we kind of go down that route, and it kind of just goes over, and then it starts to build that skepticism. And people sort of say these things because they try to monetize or make it an entertainment. Where does that fit for you? Is that been a hard thing to go, or you just go, right, okay, these are the people that understand or are interested, and the other people are never going to get it? How does that sit for you?
I think for me, you're going to have, I mean, you've got your diehard believers, myself, you got people that do it for sort of like TV, etc. and stuff. And they do have to say it's for entertainment purposes only. And that's mainly because touching on the paranormal is something that, is everybody's individual journey. In my opinion, everybody has to take that journey in its own way. Skeptics for me are my favorite people in the world. I do a ghost walk in Doncaster, and I took a couple of, we had 20 people. We took them for a walk through Doncaster, explaining a few things about ghosts. And this lovely chap was sort of doing all the ghost noises. And as I was saying, sometimes you might get that feeling where somebody's just stroking the back of your neck, and he did that to his to his wife, who screamed really loudly, which I said, amazing, I'm going to record that and put that as my ringtone. And we got to a point where we get to the marketplace in Doncaster. So if anybody that lives in Doncaster that shops at the market, I apologise. I'm going to tell you a little scary story. There used to be a church in Doncaster called St Madeline's Church, and that got moved. Some of the bodies were exhumed, but under the marketplace, some of them couldn't get exhumed because they were too obviously decayed. So there are actually bodies that haven't been exhumed underneath the marketplace. So we get the paranormal equipment out. We end up actually getting the dowsing rods, which are amazing little pieces of equipment where you hold them and they go forward and backwards. We ask questions to the spirits, etc. And I went, come on then, you do this. I'm not going to do it because I don't want you thinking I'm flipping my wrists really good, or like a ventriloquist, I can talk with my mouth shut. So he's holding these questions, and I'm saying, okay, so just ask it. Anybody who wants to talk to us, cross the rods for yes, and then I need you to ask them to very politely and steadily uncross the rods so that you can see them moving slowly, and it's not like a thump and a thump. And then I want you to just basically ask questions such as, yes and no questions. So that meant no, that meant yes. Perfect, no problem at all. So he's doing these questions anyway. About 3 questions in, it's pointing and it's doing that. You can see his face change. He's gone white. And I said, well, last question, just ask, where are you? Where are you standing? Pointing the rods to where he's standing. And both rods went right next to him.
Cool.
And he just basically gave me the rods back, said, I'm going to give you a phenomenal review. I wasn't a believer. I am now, but I'm not interested in finding anything more about it.
That's amazing. What do you think? It's because he's scared that he doesn't want to know anymore? What? Yeah.
I think you're absolutely right. I think sometimes you've got to get to a point where this is something. I mean, you do what you don't want to know about. We've got crazy little things that happen in this house. Things move, things come off the shelf. We have the balls roll sometimes. We've collated information such as SLS camera information. So those of you that are gamers in the room that play Just Dance on the Xbox, the same sort of technology that picks you up in a skeletal situation, so that it can allow you to dance and do what you're doing. It does the same thing, but if there's nothing there, it shouldn't pick something up, and it does. It picks something walking or interacting or standing next to you or that sort of thing. And we've got video of that all over the place, which has been really, really interesting to see.
So you said you live in, you said haunted house? Is that what you mean?
Yes.
Right. Did you pick that house because of that, or it was a byproduct? What was the...
No, I didn't pick the house. No, the house. My wife got sort of pregnant with her first son, and we ended up getting a council house, and we're still in the same house now. Nothing really to start off with. But as the kids got older, I noticed that they were looking at things, and the dogs were just barking for no reason because they always had some sort of pet in the house. So again, my curiosity got a little bit more crazy. So when the wife went out, I thought I'd ask a few questions, see what's what, and we got some interaction back. And my youngest son said that he used to see a old man that was just staring at him and talking to him and saying hello. And he said, "What do I do?" I said, "Say hello back," and he did. And he felt comfortable that that guy was around him in the house. He didn't scare him because he said hello. And once he said hello, he smiled and he sort of disappeared. And then there's a small sort of we feel a Victorian girl that's running around because sometimes we can hear her giggle. She plays with the interactive toys that the kids have got. So without turning them on or playing with them, they'll light up and they'll start to interact. So we'll know that she's sort of like playing around with stuff. And sometimes the dog will sit as if somebody's stroking its belly. So that's really sort of interaction there. And then we'll get the SLS camera out and see what we can pick up and use the equipment.
It's so the question that comes to my head is what is the paranormal? Because I'm thinking of, again, if I come up with misconceptions, please shoot me down. It's just, where my head's going. But what is it that they're there for? Is it we talk about like the afterlife or the in between, a whole load of things. Is it that there's like unfinished business, or that's where all the spirits and paranormal, everything is there, we just don't see it? Or is, I think about the movie Ghost, and I know, it's just, but is there like unfinished business? And we also think that, because, the idea of ghosts, and we can think about Ghostbusters and stuff like that, that they're there to do some harm, or there's, they want to interfere, or, but, when you see things, like, things moving, that to me, again, we can go, oh, you're trying to scare me, but it's actually maybe just a way of communicating that's not. So what is there, all different types, or how is it?
Well, yeah, there are all sort of different types. I mean, there's residual haunting, which basically is, I guess, playing a film on loop. It's just continuing doing what it did while it was alive. These residual hauntings might be things like you may see or hear. There's some, like, some people see Romans marching. That's not necessarily something that's sort of interacting with you. They're just continuing to do what they did while they were alive. There are more interactive hauntings, of course. Some of them don't realize that they're dead. It might have been a quick death, or it might have been a surprising death. And some, again, do have unfinished business. Nobody in the paranormal world really sort of knows why certain things are happening. But what we do know is, based on what we've seen over and over again, some will just continue to do the same thing. Nothing will change. They'll go, you'll see them do something, and then they'll disappear again. They're just doing what they did when they were alive. The more interactive hauntings, the more sort of ones where you can interact with, they want you to see them. They want to interact with you. There's a message, or there's a reason why they want to get in contact with you. Can hauntings be scary? Yes. They can indeed be scary. They can be quite terrifying at times. These are ones that can be elemental. These are ones that can be sort of had maybe a violent individual in life. It's not let go and he's continued. There are stories such as the 30 East Drive in Pontefract with the Black Monk, who terrorized a young girl in Pontefract, so much so that they moved out of the house. That house now, paranormal investigators go on a daily basis to go in and have a look and run their own sort of investigation and talk to what's still lingering in there. But for me, I think that the paranormal And when it comes to spirits being around, they're here for a reason. They're here to sort of interact. They don't want to let go, which is where I think residual hauntings come from. And there are ones that I guess want to talk to you, they want to know. And there's some that are trying to pass over, but they don't know how to. And that's where some places, some spiritualists can perform a sort of a moving on sort of spiritual ceremony to help them move on and go to where they need to be.
Yeah, I've got so many questions. It's the thing is, so again, I'm going with my limited brain, but I think about Ghostbusters, and you talked about a shadowy figure. So, and you mentioned about, can it all be scary? Like the scary side is what, the interaction, the unknown, or something's physically happened to you, or is all of the above, or what is it?
For most people that I speak to, the scary side of it is knowing something you actually really didn't want to know. It's like lots of people have interest in the paranormal. Doesn't mean they want to see a ghost. Do you know what I mean? A lot of people know that there's hundreds of people out there that are scared of heights. Essentially, they're not really scared of heights. They're scared of falling, because that's the end product of being scared of heights. So being scared of like ghosts, etc., and interacting with one might not have the same sort of understanding as I do. But I personally think that when you break it down, it's more about controlling how you feel and putting the correct energy out there, allowing you to say to yourself, when you go into a room, take control of that fear. Just I'm not here to give you any harm. I'm not here to. How would you get out of a situation if you were in a conflict? You try and calm that situation down. Have that conflict with yourself. Calm that situation down. If you go into a room and you know you're going into a room to do like a paranormal investigation, I always do a thing where I'm calming myself down. I'm understanding that I'm there with respect to ask questions and know more about them, and that I'm in their world, not mine. And it's the same situation for me.
And do you do that? Because I often feel, someone said there's 3 different types of brain. There's the mind, the heart, and the gut. But if we just stick with the mind and the heart, are you doing that logically, or are you doing it in your body, trying to have that conversation with yourself? How are you doing that?
I do it in my mind. I do it with so basically I'm thinking to myself that I'm going in here to ask these questions. I'm going in here to find this information out. I then check in around here and just sort of realize that your body is, I guess most people recognize it as, if you know Spider-Man, he has a spidey sense. You'll know when you'll feel when you feel that something's not right. You know when you feel like you've outstayed your welcome in these sort of situations, because you'll feel it. Heart rate will go up. You will feel uncomfortable. You won't feel like it's a place you want to be. And that's where fear should be your ally, because that's going to show you how you get out of a situation quickly and successfully, so that it gets you to the best sort of, your best sort of outcome. And that's really what I wanted to turn Dust Till Sean into: people understanding their fear, understanding to control that, and how to move forward in a situation that they've never been in, which is where the team building sort of idea came out of at 2:00 in the morning.
So is that team building thing around the paranormal? Because again, through everything that you've said, I'm like, there's so much applicable from the paranormal world and your world into everyday situations, business, interactions with people, with ourselves, like everything. So are you using the paranormal for them to understand themselves, etc., and then to put that into business, or you're using it as a team building thing to understand each other in a paranormal setting? How does it work?
So it works in the sense of, when you do a team building event, ordinarily you'll have a group come in and they'll get you to work with minimal sort of supplies to create something good, such as a I don't know, rocket ship out of toilet rolls and sticky back plastic, etc. And the idea is to have somebody sort of like take control, have somebody that wouldn't normally sort of like be vocal doing that, etc. For this sort of experiment, it's not about trying to create that sort of vibe. My vibe is putting you in a situation you've never been in, putting you in a situation you probably wouldn't put yourself in. We would go and we would do a full-out paranormal investigation with the team and let the team understand exactly what it's about, so that they know a bit about the house, they know what's haunting the house, they know which rooms are the most haunted. And then we would set tasks in those rooms where they would go in groups on their own in order to work together to get out of those tasks and move on to the next room. Come together and see, you know, how they work together, what they found, what was their best attribute, who with the most, but the person that they leaned on the most, how did they cope, etc. Because it's about, when you go into to the business world, or you're going to open a business, you've got to make decisions that might make you procrastinate. They might make you think about, you know, are you good enough to be in this entrepreneurial pond with all these fish that are doing really well or seemingly doing really, really well? Are you you know, are you good enough for the promotion? Are you good enough for the job interview? Are you just, you know, are you going to be able to do that? And fear holds so many people back. Absolutely so many people back. It did me for a very long time. Before I contemplated turning this into a business, I just had a podcast. And that wasn't because I wanted to do the podcast, because I did, but it was more, well, the podcast is safe. It's safe. People can listen to my podcast or they don't have to. I turn the paranormal into something a little bit more sort of jovial. I make people really sort of embrace it in a sense where it's not in a sense of, you've probably seen the TV shows where we're in the most haunted hotel and thing. People have had this, people have had that. Yeah, I go through all that, but with the skills and the equipment and the situations that allow you to sort of get through it and ask questions and delve in, by working as a team, you come out of it with doing a paranormal investigation on your own, understanding the fact that not everything in life can be foreseen. Not everything in life you can control, and not everything in life genuinely you can be prepared for. How you cope with that is how you grow. And the idea is to make people understand that the unseen, the not knowing, isn't anything to be scared of. It's your journey, it's your adventure, it's what's coming for you. And that's the reason why, you know, we see forward and we want to grow more.
It's I feel that you're beyond your years in terms of wisdom, because it's quite something. It's I want to say you're putting people in a situation where fear is present without that being dangerous.
Correct.
And that's something that you don't really put, you're never going to get that on an offsite, like a, you know, sort of day out, you know, having a few drinks. And we never, that's such a smart, like it's, I don't really know how to put that into words, but there's so much knowledge that you will gain from that, being in fear, but not in danger. And it's not, you know, we all do this thing, like we think about like throwing yourself off like a bungee jump or something and saying, oh, you can do it. But this is very, you know, a bungee jump is, you know, just a moment's decision. But what you're doing is actually, you're allowing that experience to be longer, understanding yourself, not just, okay, did I just jump off something? It's a team thing. Who am I relying on? What interactions do I need? What comes down? Because a a bungee jump. I don't know why I'm thinking it's just bungee jump. Maybe it's you were sort of saying about heights and throwing yourself off, but you understand, so much about yourself. Okay, finally, I will ask for help because I am, we all seem to go around with this protective armor, this, mask that we don't want others to feel that we don't feel capable because there's shame or guilt attached to all of that. But putting people in that situation, in something that's so unknown and can be fun, but it's very revealing, right? Very hugely revealing in a situation that you couldn't replicate in many other ways. I can't think of one off the top of my head. That's such a genius idea. How did you make the connection between the business world and the paranormal and doing all of that? I know you said you woke up in the middle of the night, but was that a series of things that have created that?
Yeah, so I know a lot of people that do own businesses and they do team building days. I've been sort of corporate quite a lot of my life, and I've done these team building days, and they're fun for two reasons. One, I'm not doing my day job. I'm off the phone for the day, or I'm off the job for the day. I'm not doing my day job. I'm just kind of chilling with my friends. You know what I mean? And we're talking about stuff, but we're not really taking it in. And I come out of it, and the team's still the same. We're still friends with X, Y, and Z, but don't really sort of know A, B, and C over there as much. So we don't really sit and have lunch with them or anything like that. And we then get this world of clickiness, this world where you have individuals, which I think is glorified on movies. You got you got your American sort of TV shows where you've got the sports people, you've got the popular people, etc., and so on. And I thought, well, paranormal is intriguing to everybody, whether it's something that you really want to know about, or whether it's just something small that you enjoy watching the programs, or you like a good horror show. Do you know what I mean? So you'll go to the movies, etc. And I thought, well, here's a situation now where I can put people in a room where nobody's prepared for it. Nobody's really prepared for it. We're gonna take you to a haunted location, roughly near where you are, where you probably walked past many times. And we're going to give you a bit of history from that. I'm going to take you on a proper paranormal investigation that you would have seen maybe on TV, where we'll use the equipment, we'll ask the questions, we'll go dark with the green, with the green light, and we'll do everything that you would see. Now, the thing about going dark, by the way, is what you see on TV is the fact that they go green, and that's that sort of green screen situation. When you're dark, you've got a little red light, which is your camera. And you've got your equipment, so you've got like your EMF going off, you've got like your REM pod going off. Now your REM pod is a really loud piece of equipment. I've got one here. Essentially, this little fella creates like an electronic field around it, and in order to sort of interact with it, it does this. So if you imagine it's dark, and for your viewers, I do apologize, it's going to get a bit loud. If you imagine it's dark, you're asking questions. This is away from anybody, so nobody can interact with it. And that goes off. You sort of get a bit scared. So it's about making sure that we set up these rooms so that people know what they're doing. But the worst thing about it is, for me, or the best thing about it is for me, is you never really walk past that place the same. You might have walked past that place 1,000,001 times, but now you walk past it knowing, because you've been in there and you've done that. And I think you walk past it with a little sense of pride. You've been, you've accomplished something, and you're building relationships with people that you probably never spoke to, but you've now found a common interest or a common event that really brought you together.
And what is there like a common takeaway that you see people have about themselves or other people? What's because I'm just thinking, oftentimes, offsites and team building and stuff is generally dictated by some manager, and you're put in a situation, you go, okay, now I'm thrown in a room and we've got, like you say, got to do something, and you go, okay, but I'm just thinking, how does it work? What the companies that come to you, the people that come to you, they're either they don't want to do it, they're excited. What do they come out with? Are you seeing common patterns in things? Yeah,
I think it's a mixed bag. Some of them are excited because they've always wanted to go on a ghost walk, or they've always wanted to do something. Some of them are a bit sort of skeptical. It's like, I don't really see what I'm going to get out of this. And some of them are a little bit nervous because obviously of where they are, and they may have heard stories if it's local to them about this particular place, and they're not 100% sure if it's something that they want to see themselves get through. One of the things that you picked up on, which I really like, is that you are sort of forced into sort of rooms and your manager takes control, etc. The difference that I do is I take names and we randomly put them together. The next thing we do is we get you to pick an envelope. That particular envelope, after we've done the paranormal, will tell you which room you're starting in. But everybody will get a go on that room. Everybody will then change and have a go on that room. And the task that is set in order for you to work together as a team. So a little bit like how an escape room would work, you'd have certain people work in certain logical situations in order to open the door and escape from the room within a time limit. This allows you to work together and sort of work with people that you haven't worked with before, work with people randomly. And that's the thing about paranormal. It's a random event. You never know what you're going to get out of it. You never know what's going to come through. And some of the equipment that we use is sort of intriguing, because you might have to discuss something in that room that you feel needs to change from a workplace point of view, but there will be somebody asking spirit what they think, and these REM pods and these lights and these things will be going off at the time that you're trying to get to this thing and this solution. And what we found with doing this is that it's interesting to see how people cope with it. But the one thing that is sort of, I think, common is that they all tend to want to work together. They all tend to know that quite quickly nobody really is in charge in that room. You're there to support each other. And I think that's where the difference is with team building. You've got to understand that there isn't a leader, there's a team. There isn't somebody in charge. There's a support network there of everybody. If you're scared, come stand next to me. If you're worried, come tell me what it's about. I don't have to be Captain Scarlet for you to come to me. I can just be your colleague. I can just be the person standing next to you at the time that you could open up to, and I'll be there, no problem at all. And being in a situation that you're completely unaware of, being in a situation that you're completely not ready for, I think that brings out the best in people and really wants to see people sort of strive to help people through it. And that's where fear comes into it.
It's such a, again, I'm going to say genius idea, because in the corporate world, sometimes I think I'm just corporate bashing on these conversations that I have, but we get caught up in ego, we get caught up in titles and status and money and everything like that. But in those situations, none of that is relevant, right? Like, we're all human. We all, again, sometimes, so I always say about titles and status and and labels, I don't really like them, because I think it either gives us a sense of entitlement or it limits us in some way. But we forget that we're all human, and we're all unique. We all have a load of things, and just because we fitted a job description doesn't define us. And we kind of sign up for that. Obviously there's benefits to many people for those roles and responsibilities, ourselves, companies, you name it. But the reality is you're stripping all of that away in such a unique way that you go, yeah. And, you know, oftentimes we go, no, I don't want help, or I'm going to do this on my own. And the reality is, you know, when it comes to it, we all need people. We want that connection. We want to feel safe. We want to support each other. We want to give. And I've, for a long time, I know obviously news can be very negative. I don't consume any news whatsoever. And people are telling me stuff that's going on in the world. And I'm like, is it? I don't know. Because I found that I couldn't trust that, or based on how I perceived the world, I would take that and it would affect me in quite a negative way. And I think oftentimes the messages that we get is that everyone's just thinking about themselves, or people don't care. And there was a moment in my life where I was just scared to just walk down a high street because I just thought, you know, someone was going to rob me, or, you know, something bad. But most of us are kind and caring. We kind of got into this world where we keep ourselves insular. But most of the time, if there's something going on, people will help you. It might not be the first person, but someone will look after you. They will be caring. But we often think it's the other way. And it's great to have those scenarios where you go, oh, okay. And we have all these assumptions based on our background or our past. And all of that can be shattered in a very short period of time through those events that you're doing. That's really, really something. And I feel that once those walls come down, those barriers, those assumptions, can really change a lot of dynamics between people, about ourselves, understand that we don't need to do that. We can ask for help. We do need community. We do need connection. We can't do it all on our own. You know, it's almost endless, the possibilities out the back of that, right?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It's I'm just blown away. How what's the take up for this? Is it because again, it, you know, I was coming into this conversation thinking that we were just going to talk about paranormal, but this is so beyond what I thought we would be even discussing, and I loved that. But how's that received from the business world? Is there challenges involved in that? Is it because I think there are people looking, you know, we've all done those days out and, you know, team building stuff, and like you say, building a rocket, etc. And it's just a replication of the office. You know, the person who's in charge takes the lead or just tells people what to do, and they sit back. But what's the take up from companies? What is there challenges in trying to get this across? Are you not worried about that? Yeah, just what's that like?
I mean, I think always with something new, there's challenges. You know, they may have used a team that they've done for many, many years to come in once a quarter, or, you know, once a year to sort of shake up the year and give them a bit of a break from what they do and a team building exercise. For me, the people that I spoke to have the same sort of opinion as you do. It's like it's very interesting. It's very new. It's something that they've never done before. And we're talking to companies now at the moment, getting ready to book some people in to you know, to take the experience again. But it's for me, I think the challenge isn't necessarily the fact that people think it's a great thing and it's new and it's exciting. I think a lot of people tend to have muscle memory. They do the same thing. So at the beginning of the year, quite a lot of their budgets is done. Quite a lot of everything is done. I came up with this so like 2:00 in the morning at the end of last year, and it basically hit me. I have a lot of what I do is on an evening, obviously. So my sleep pattern is ridiculous. I wake up at ridiculous times, come up with an idea, write it down. I think it's the dyslexia in me, the neurodiversity in me. I'll write it down. I'll get it done. And then it'll play on me with something else, and I'll write something else down, and I'll write something else down, and I'll write something else down. And the next thing I know, I go, how do I turn that into what I need to turn that into? And I break it down, and I get it there. And when I get to talk to people about it, they get it. Do you know what I mean? I think really my challenge moving forward will be basically being able to have a 10 or 15-minute conversation so that people understand exactly what it does for the team and exactly the reason why I'm doing this. It's not a gimmick in the sense of it's paranormal. Is it unique? Yes, I suppose it is a gimmick to a point, but it's more that I want to make sure that their team know that that's exactly what team is, that you can rely on the person next to you. You can rely on the person at the bottom of the at the bottom of the office. You have a team that you can fall back on, and there's nothing more empowering than that when you open a business. There's nothing more empowering when a business owner is taking that very scary step of going, right, I'm going to go on holiday and leave this in the hands of my team, knowing that their team have got each other's back, know exactly what they need, are there for each other. And this environment I found from doing it with just friends and going on paranormal investigations and running the Dusk Till Sean podcast is something that we all work together in order to get through. So all I'm doing is taking what we do when we do a paranormal investigation, and I'm looking after other people that go out with me, and I'm looking after the person that's doing the camera that might get an interaction while he's holding the camera, and I'm coming and making sure that they're okay, or they get a feeling of feeling sick when they walk into a room so that they can go out of that room. I'm helping them do that. These are the things that I realize that if I do a paranormal investigation, everybody has to be on board to help each other. So how can I replicate that in the business world? And it was just simple. It was just a simple transition. It was like, I do what I do when I take a team out of my own, and I just make sure that everybody knows that you can turn to anybody in that team and fall back on them, and they will catch you, and they will support you, and they will get you through it.
That's honestly, it's fantastic. It's I was thinking about what sort of companies that you work with, because you mentioned startups and sort of smaller companies, and I hear this a lot because I kind of talk to leaders, coaches, a whole kind of spectrum of people, and I one of the things I started when I started these lives, it was about people and sort of changing the idea of work and how people worked, because I feel that most people are really good at their jobs, but there's so much that gets in the way, so much ego, there's so much control, there's so many things that we don't talk about. They just exist in between the lines. People say, well, it's not written in a policy, but it's just that interaction, the attitudes, the people being scared that it's masked with something else. And I really feel that so much of that, if we could remove it from the day to day, people would enjoy their work so much more. And one of the things that I feel is autonomy, and that's maybe specific to me, but oftentimes we think, oh, we're key to the whole running of this business, and like you say, like founders or CEOs go, well, if I'm to take a day off, the world would fall apart.
Yes.
That's not actually about the company. That's about you and how you see things. But putting them in a situation where you can see your team and how they interact outside of the normal day-to-day stuff, you realize how capable people are, and what actually happens most of the time is we get in their way, as leaders, as managers, and we have this thing about leaders, and I think it's really quite a weird misconception, because we think leaders are the people out the front that are sort of saying, okay, this is the direction, this is the way it's going to be. But for me, oftentimes I see leaders as the quiet people behind, that sit behind, understand, can clear the road for everybody and say, look, they sit with wisdom. They can see the opportunities in people, in business, in interactions, collaborations, everything. They don't need to shout about it. They can just move the pieces nicely. They can see where they're causing the speed bumps in the road and everything like that. And I think the most successful ones are the ones that look and go, what am I causing in this situation? And, can I get that out of the way? And I think business would be so much better if you allowed people to experiment with their job, enjoy it, not just fit into the 9 to 5, question everything. And I know that everything is such an open and, you know, scary term for everyone, because we like structure and we like routine. Excuse me. But I think in that world, if you go and see, if you're in a situation, you can see how your team are and that they can handle things. That might give you the confidence to step away and understand even more about yourself and more about your team. And I think that's it. It's so smart, so clever. And so, are you working with smaller companies or larger companies or anywhere in between? Is there a preference for you?
Not really. I mean, the preference at the moment, I would say probably I'm working in small companies at the moment, but happy to work with the big companies, between 5 and 10 at the moment. But I am happy to work with the bigger companies as well. It's more new. The product's called green light, which is basically what happens when you drop the camera in and you go dark into the green light. But it's all relevant. I mean, I'm happy to work with anybody that has a team of if you've got a team of 3, you know, you've got 2 people, come along, we'll give you an event, we'll help you work together, we'll sort it out. The more they've got, obviously, the better, because you'll start to see the clicks and then individuals and etc. And you, as a manager or as a leader, you might miss some people that have got qualities that you didn't realize, because they just come in and they do the job and they go home and they disappear into the silence of the ether. So yeah, you know, whoever wishes to have a conversation, happy to have a conversation with them.
That's amazing. Do you have an idea, a vision? So we live in a world where everyone thinks that we need to grow to be successful, or is there a view that you would like to replicate this, or you're happy with how it is? Obviously, you know, it's nice to have a continuous flow of clients, etc. But something tells me that this is such a, if I say untapped, it makes it sound like some oil reserve or something. But I think there's so much wisdom, like I've said throughout this conversation. And obviously you're one person, but obviously you must know a lot of other people, you know, and you're connected. Would you like to replicate this in other places, or do you just like keeping it small to see your interaction and build it? What do you have any thoughts for the future?
My thoughts for the future, obviously, I'd like to sort of grow, obviously, but I think for me at the minute, I am happy to help people that need to be helped. Again, I'm different when it comes to success. For me, success is helping people. I'm happy to go and speak to a company with some videos of me doing paranormal investigations and explain how that fear helped them. And we're happy to go and help myself. So I'm happy to go and take them to a paranormal investigation and do the whole team building thing. But my goal at the moment is to take 2026 into maybe doing a regular team building day a month, and just see what the British industry at the moment thinks of it. I've got opportunity to work across the UK. There's haunted locations all over the place, and a lot of them are happy for me to rent and take a team in. So it's really good to have that. We've taken a team into East Drive. We've taken a team to some of the most haunted areas of Doncaster. There's the Airplane Museum, for instance, that's very haunted in Doncaster. The Ghost Walk has had people sort of asking questions about themselves and understanding themselves. And again, that's probably where some of the inspiration came from. As I started on the Ghost Walk, watching people sort of support people that they didn't even know. They didn't know each other before they met there. You know, some of them come on their own and they didn't know who to go to. And like, you'll see people say, "Oh no, come with me. You're all right. You'll be fine. It's okay." You know, and for all else fails, I have a little Jacksu called Boo, and he comes along. So if you do need a Boo hug, he'll take a sausage roll off you, but he'll give you a cuddle.
Oh, I think that's an amazing place to end. I'm obviously conscious of the time. Sean, like I said earlier, I never go into these conversations knowing exactly what I was going to talk about, and they're always unscripted. I just was so turned around by it. I had some weird expectation we were going to talk about paranormal and how this was, and that is so it's been so much more than that. I think there's something so clever about what you're doing. And I think beyond that, I think who you are is very inspiring. You have this calmness. You like there's no sensationalizing with any of this. There was never trying to convince or to say anything. And but at the heart of it, I got someone that was very caring, and that runs through everything. And the fact that you've made this connection between paranormal and people, we say people because they're in work, but it's about people, and there's this connection, and there's this understanding about yourself, other people, how that translates in a environment that we know nothing, well, we know very little about, and we are understanding more. Obviously, you understand a lot about it, and creating that environment where fear shows up without the danger. And that is so, honestly, it's hard for me to put into words. I'm super impressed, very inspired. There was a comment you said about playing it safe, just being on the podcast, and then you would think about something else. That kind of hit a nerve, because I'm also in that place myself where I'm like, yeah, this is safe to do these lives. What, is there something else that I should be doing? So you've also given me a sort of window to maybe look at myself. But honestly, this has been absolutely sensational. Really, really amazing. For the people that want to find you, you've obviously got a website. I found you on LinkedIn. Where should people go? Just if they're curious, where should they go?
Curious at the moment, I would go to my LinkedIn profile, purely because my website is having a restructure, so he's not up there at the moment. Other than that, I have a Facebook group called the Dustle Sean Paranormal Community, and we share sort of stories on there. There's a blog going on today about the fun side, believe it or not, of the Ouija board.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you very much for your time, Sean. This was a real pleasure. If there's if anyone's got any questions, maybe it'd be great to do a round two. You're super fun, super easy to talk to. You explain things in such a lovely way, as I said. So, but for today, thank you very much for your time. It was a real pleasure for me.
It's been amazing. Thank you for having me. I really appreciate you reaching out. It's been amazing.
Thanks, Sean. Take care. Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Hey, it's me again. So if you enjoyed this conversation with Sean, why don't you subscribe to the channel? In that way, you get to see more of these. I do 2 to 3 of these a week, where I get to have fascinating conversations. I get to scratch my own itch in terms of asking loads of questions and being curious about subjects. And why don't you join me on this journey? Now, I have no idea who my future guests are going to be. So if you want to contribute on that, if you have anyone that you think you would like me to have on this channel, please let me know. Any feedback, comments. But if you subscribe to it, it gives me some more data, gives me an idea of what you like, what you don't. Also add some comments. As long as it's constructive and useful, then I'll take it on board. So, I want more of your input, so I'm happy for it. Please just subscribe, hit the bell notification, so this goes out on YouTube, LinkedIn, and also Apple Podcasts and Spotify. So if you like any of those platforms, go and find me there. Enjoy, and I'm grateful that you've shown up for me. That's it for me. Take care.